for joining us today. This is Think Tech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My name is Alice Lee Hagen. I have two very distinguished guests with me today. Both of them have decided to trade in reading musical scores, and then they ended up reading financial statements and balance sheet. I have Jonathan Parrish. He is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Symphony. And after the break, I will have Nicholas Dow, who is the owner of CK Violin. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you, Alice.
Well, you are the Executive Director of Hawaii Symphony since November 2013, right?
That's
so
correct.
Not even a year. Maybe we will play a little excerpt of the first rehearsal of the symphony from 2012.
Okay.
Control room, could you show that, please?
This weekend, the new Hawaii Symphony Orchestra launches its inaugural season. Honolulu has been without a symphony orchestra since the 110-year-old symphony stopped performing in December of 2009. KITV4's Jody Leong reports from the Hawaii Symphony's first rehearsal this afternoon.
The new Hawaii Symphony Orchestra gave its president an extended standing ovation at its first rehearsal. About 55 musicians, or two-thirds of the orchestra, come from the defunct Honolulu Symphony. The last time these musicians performed as the Honolulu Symphony was October 23, 2009.
2 years ago, we only were dreaming about this day.
But a Symphony Exploratory Committee reached an agreement with the Musicians Union last year to start a new symphony. Musicians have 16-week contracts with a salary of $1,000 a week. They'll play for Ballet Hawaii's Nutcracker and the Hawaii Opera Theater. President Steve Monder says a startup symphony would not have been possible without the community's support.
The support is already there. People just want to see us succeed. And
Well, Jonathan, how does it feel to watch that excerpt again?
Well, it was a very exciting time. March 2012, the very first concert of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, seeing Maestro Naoto Otomo and Steve Monder, who was the consultant that really helped us get launched, brings back all that excitement.
Well, it's been almost 2 years now, so give us an update of how the symphony has been doing. And of course, recently we've heard about the agreement with the musicians. Tell us about that, please.
Well, we had a very successful season here in 2013-14. We just finished in June 1st, and we have extended our agreement with the musicians through June 30th, 2016. And we're just about to make our books final for last year, and we're projecting to have a balanced budget.
Wow, congratulations.
So thank you. So that's all really great news. And we're also just about to announce the next season, 2014-15 season, which will start September 13th and 14th.
That's great. Let's talk maybe some history about the symphony. Can you tell us a little bit about the history then?
Well, the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra is the successor to the Honolulu Symphony Orchestra, which was founded in 1900 and played through 2009. And the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra was formed in 2011 as an organization, presented its first concerts in 2012. So artistically, we are more than a century old in a sense, and we have musicians in the orchestra who've been with us for decades, some 3 or 4 decades. But from a business standpoint, we're new staff, new board, and we're a startup. So it is interesting. We have such a great legacy artistically, and our product is established.
Legacy is correct, because when I was doing my preparation for the interview, I didn't realize that our orchestra is actually one of the oldest west of the Rockies.
That's true. 1900 is one of the earliest orchestras established west of the Rockies.
And I remember when I attended the last concert for last season, and I think it was you who went up and recognized a lot of the musicians, and you mentioned that a lot of them have been with us for decades.
Yes.
But there were a couple who have been there for 40 years.
Yes, 3 musicians for more than 40 years, yes.
That's astounding, and I still remember the applause from the audience, and I'm so glad that we have the orchestra back. You're talking about the new season in September. Can you give us some highlights? Can you share that with us?
Well, the significance of the weekend we start in September 13 and 14, is that it's the 50th anniversary of the opening of the Neil Blaisdell Concert Hall. So September 13th, 1964, the orchestra played for the grand opening, the formal premiere of the venue. And we will recreate half of that program, play the same repertoire. And then we'll, which was Tchaikovsky and Mendelssohn. And then we've got a couple other new things to present there. And then we'll have concerts in October, November, December, January, March, May, and June, I believe is how our schedule, there'll be 12 programs altogether.
Wow, that's exciting. Do you have any special events or celebration to commemorate the 50th anniversary then?
Well, we're going to have some ceremony. We will certainly invite the city administration and mayor, the mayor to be there and speak, Mr. Mayor Caldwell, to recognize this 50 years that this venue, which had a great impact on the community and on the life of the orchestra, of course. Before that, the orchestra performed at McKinley High School Auditorium, which is a smaller auditorium. And in the 60s, it was recognized that we needed to have a much larger venue for the orchestra. And so that's worked out pretty well. And so we want to mark that anniversary.
Oh, absolutely.
And celebrate all the concerts. For 50 years, we've performed concerts, operas, ballets, even Broadway shows. I played for Wicked when it was here.
Oh.
So, you know, if it was musical and in that venue, there's good odds that it was the symphony.
With regard to the audience, I remember, I guess at one of the Symphony Associates meeting, they were talking about whether people remember stories about first time when the symphony played 50 years ago. Have you heard any stories from people who attended the first performance back then?
I do know several people who were there, or either played in the orchestra or were in attendance.
Oh.
I believe everybody who attended got a champagne glass that was etched as a commemorative item, and there was a beautiful embossed program, which we have a copy of. So yeah, it was a big celebration. It was a big deal for Honolulu and really for Hawaii to get a 2,000-seat venue. There really wasn't anything like that in the islands at all until then.
Wow, I can't wait till the next season. Now, well, as I mentioned earlier on, you've been the executive director for less than a year. A lot has happened, so tell us some of the accomplishments to date.
Well, you know, we obviously we had a great season. I came in November. The season had just started. We had 12 wonderful programs this year. Some great artists. We had the world-class French pianist Jean-Yves Thibaudet. We had the great German conductor Günther Herbig. We had Maestro Naoto Otomo was with us. Joanne Falletta was here. James Galway, Bela Fleck, Anna Kiko Myers. Iggy Jang played a concerto. Of course, we always love to have Iggy featured. And we did our first Pops presentation. We did a concert dedicated to the music of John Williams. Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Jaws and you know that kind of thing. It was a lot of fun. And we did our first free community concert in Kailua. On May 31st, we presented a free concert for the community, and we had about 1,200 people show up.
Oh, can you hold there? Control room, can you show the first set of photos? I have actually 2 pictures from the Kailua concert. So, yeah, this one, and so it's really, really, I guess I always imagine orchestras in black, very formal. So tell us a little bit about this outdoor concert, and when was the last time you did something like that?
Well, this concert was in the Kailua District Park in the pavilion. So it was great that there's an existing venue where we were sheltered and that projected the sound to the great audience you can see there. And when we play this kind of event, we usually wear aloha wear.
Oh,
so
okay.
we want to be a bit casual. We want to look like we're we were from Hawaii. We want to look like our audience. And the last time we did that, I would say probably 2007, 2008. We did do some free concerts on the neighbor islands.
Wow.
But it's the kind of thing we'd like to do much more of. So we're already talking with our friends in Kailua about making it an annual event.
Oh, that would be great. And it seems like you're also trying to diversify the types of concerts.
Sure. Like any business, you want to have multiple product lines. And our classical concerts are that's the reason we exist, to play the great masterworks of the symphonic repertoire. But we also want to have a broad audience and attract people of different tastes. So we would want to play film music and Broadway music, and we want to feature singers, and we want to do some things with film, and we need to do some education concerts so that our children grow up having been exposed to orchestras and classical music.
And I absolutely agree with you. I think it makes it people become more well-rounded if they play music, and I really support the music program at my son's school. Now, outdoor concerts and more official indoor concerts, can you tell us what the audience reaction is? Is there a difference?
There certainly, because the acoustic of the environment of the performance is different. Obviously, in the hall, the audience is a little bit darker. You sit still. It's quiet. The sound kind of envelops you a bit because of the hall. The hall is part of our sound. When you go outside, you lose the hall, but what you gain is the ability to put down a blanket, have a little something to eat, lay back and look at the sky and listen to the music. And it's a different experience, but I think an equally enjoyable one.
What about for the musicians themselves?
Musicians? Oh, I think the musicians enjoy playing anytime they feel that the audience is enjoying themselves. It doesn't matter where. It's great to play in a beautiful hall that's really formal and has a great acoustic, but it's also great to play in a school cafeteria if you're appreciated, if your music is reaching them and communicating something.
You talked about outreach programs to schools, to younger students. What do you have planned?
Well, we have a long history of doing education in the schools. For the moment, we have to grow kind of gradually. So one of the first things we hope to do is next spring we want to restart a program called Link Up. And it's a program, curriculum that is designed by Carnegie Hall. And we did it a few years ago. We were one of about 5 orchestras in the country. Now there are about 60 that are doing it. And it's for 3rd to 5th graders. And it's taught in the classroom, and they are prepared and learn songs. They either sing or they play the recorder, and then they learn a few songs, and they do this curriculum. And then the final culminating event is they come to the orchestra hall and they hear us play a performance, and they perform with us.
Oh, that would be great.
3rd to 5th grade. So it's very exciting for them, and it's a great introduction to the orchestra. So that's sort of our starting place, and then we will begin to expand from there.
That's great. That's wonderful to know that so many things are going to be happening with the symphony. Let's take a break here, and when we come back from the break, we'll talk to Nicholas Dow, the owner of CK Violin. My guest here has been Jonathan Parrish, the Executive Director of Hawaii Symphony. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard, and I host the show Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series right here every Wednesday from 2 to 3 Hawaii time. I would really love to have you watch the show and see what we do here. I talk with some of the most amazing people, artists, most of them, all of them involved in some sort of artistic process. And our goal here on the show is to dig into that artistic process, and you would not believe what some people say, what some people do, what people go through to express. And these are people who have to express somehow, and I find that infinitely interesting. not only that they have to express, but how they end up doing it. I really hope that you will watch the show and enjoy talking with some of these people the same way that I do. Thanks, and I hope to see you soon on Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series, Wednesdays from 2 to 3. See you soon.
Welcome back. This is Alice Lee Hagen with Think Tech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Before the break, I was talking to Jonathan Parrish, the Executive Director of Hawaii Symphony. Now, my other distinguished guest is Nicholas Dow, a violinist and the owner of CK Violin. Nicholas, I have so many questions I want to ask you, even when we were driving down here. But the first one I'll start with is, how did you become a violinist?
Well, I was from China, and my father was a musician, violinist, composer, and when I was a kid, and my father just wanted me to become a violinist, I have no choice. And during the time, there was a Cultural Revolution, and my father pretty much forced me to play the violin and practice every day, 7-8 hours.
So Cultural Revolution was between end of 1960s to the beginning of 1970s, correct?
Yes, it starts in 1966 and ends as 1976.
Okay. Yeah. Now, your father was a violinist himself,
Yes.
and he made you play, and you became a very, very good violinist. So good that he decided to have you compete to enter the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, and during the Cultural Revolution, there was 10 years, the school system pretty much stopped. And after the revolution in 76, and the country, the education department start the auditions, examination again for the whole nation. And the Central Conservatory gave auditions in 1977, and we have 4 different district audition spots, and each audition location holds with several provinces, maybe 6 to 7 provinces. I don't have the exact number, but that's 1,000 violinists, singers, cellists. They go to their particular spot to having audition.
Now, for audience who may not know about the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing, China, I guess that would be comparable to a Juilliard school in
Eastman School of Music. And at that time, they only choose my district for 4 violinists, and 2 for younger age, 2 for college age.
Okay. So that was out of thousands, if not millions, of competitors.
Yes, there were out of thousands. I don't have the exact number, but it's 1,000 violinists, singers, pianists competing.
That is incredible. So when you got selected, what happened afterwards? You were from the southern province.
I'm from the southern province called Guangdong, and now we call Canton area. And I have to travel by train 38 hours to Beijing, to the capital, and attend to the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing. And only a few, I don't think it's more than 500 students in school. That's all areas, from violin to percussion to cello, and we are very highly trained, and we compete every single day. If you're not up to that level, and you'll be out, and someone will be taking your spot. That's 1,000 people, 1,000 kids waiting for that particular spot if you're out. So we're compete pretty crazily.
Do you remember when you got accepted, when you found out that you got accepted, what was your reaction and that of your reaction of your parents?
I couldn't believe it, and when I got accepted, I was working. I was, in a high school, and we were training as at the farm in the countryside to, study for farmers, how to work in the field. And my parents came to get me out of there and just told me, oh, you get accepted, you got to go to Beijing to study. I couldn't believe it.
So how many years were you there at the Central Conservatory?
I was there from 1978 to 83, and I studied there for 5 years.
Okay. Well, control room, can you show the next video? This next video, actually, you told me about that, from Mao to Mozart.
Yes.
And I would like you to take a look at this, and perhaps you can recall the memories of what it was like at that time, because I believe you were at the school when this famous violinist came to the school. So you said that he gave master class at your school.
Yes.
And was he the first, I guess, Western violinist to visit?
He was, I believe he was one of the first. Isaac Stern and another famous violinist, Sir Yehudi Menuhin, was one of the first or the second. And plus, the Boston Symphony, the directing by Seiji Ozawa, maestro, brought the Boston Symphony to Beijing. Yes.
Did you know about these musicians when you were in China at that time?
I heard of them play from the old records, and I never see them play in live until 1978, 1979.
Control room, can you show the second set of pictures here? Here, you share with me some of the black and white pictures.
Yes.
And these are the ones that you took. If you could just move.
This one, Isaac Stern's rehearsing the Mozart Violin Concerto with the Central Conservatory student orchestra. I was playing in one of the spots. Probably I'm not there, and that's one of my friends take the picture.
Can you show image 4, please?
And this is Isaac Stern give a master class in the Central Conservatory. And this is a very interesting picture. Mr. Stern played the Chinese violin we call erhu, only 2 strings. That also, he was in Central Conservatory, one of the rehearsing room.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Do you remember how your fellow classmates felt when Isaac Stern came?
Yes, we are very exciting to hear how the famous violinists in the world play the violin, and different than we play the violin. And the musical phrasing and the structure of the whole concerto, and was wow. We're not just practice for the violin, the high technique on the violin. We have to learn to play with in the group, chamber music, and that is a new world to us.
Wow, Nicholas, you know, this can be another show on its own, comparing the way Asians or Chinese play Western music as opposed to how we do it here.
Right.
Let's move forward with, I guess, your musical journey from China to the U.S. You were at the top school in China.
Right.
I guess perhaps a lot of people it would be hard for a lot of us to understand. Once you are at that school, your career is set.
Yes.
But then you decided to come to the U.S.
Because I would love to study the violin further. I mean, also, the violin is a Western instrument. I want to go to the U.S. or Europe to get further study. That's why I decided to leave China and attend the Eastman School of Music. That's I got my next 4-year training.
Was it difficult for you to leave China?
It was really difficult, very difficult at that time. And I was interested to go to West Germany that time to study violin. And a professor, Wolfgang Marschner, he was a wonderful, famous violinist in West Germany, tried to take me out from China to Germany to study violin. But somehow the school, the central government won't grant me for a passport. So that deal didn't go through. And in 1983, I went to a different route and I got my passport. And one of my relatives in Rochester, New York, helped me to get into the Eastman School of Music. And I went to U.S. Embassy and I got my visa. That's how I'm ending up to the U.S.
After you came here, well, I guess I was going to ask you what your memorable experience was, but how was it transitioning from China to the U.S., especially, I guess, the language, the culture are so different, and you came here on your own.
I came here on my own. I have one-way ticket and landed in Rochester, New York, a very cold, different world, but I really enjoyed it and my life in Eastman, and it was crazy without a lot of language, without a lot of English, and don't know many people. Yeah.
I imagine at that time there wouldn't have been a lot of Asian students.
Yes.
How did you adjust, and did you make friends?
I make friends with my classmate, and it was a Singapore classmate helped me to get registered to Eastman School because I didn't know, I wouldn't know what was going on without her help.
That's fascinating. Did you go back to China to visit, or did your parents come to visit you?
No, my parents never visited me until late 1990s, and I arrived to U.S. 1983, and I didn't go back to China visit until 85, and then 2 years I went back up.
Wow, so that was a long time in between. A lot of things have happened in China.
Yes.
So do you remember what it was like when you went back to China in the 80s then?
Oh, China, I just came back from China 3 weeks ago. Now, every time I go back to China, it's just a tremendous difference. The building, the street, the scenery is all totally different than the old days.
What about the musical scene? Because you probably were used to the type of training in China, the
Yes.
Central Conservatory of Music, and then you came to the Eastman School.
Yes.
Tell us in layman's term, what's the difference? Is there a difference in terms
Yeah,
of
that's a
musical
lot.
training?
It's a lot of difference in China. We have professors, teachers. They chase you from behind. Practice. But at Eastman School in the Western world, there's no one will do any of this for you. It's all by yourself, and certainly you have a lot of freedoms. You have a lot of music, library, concerts to attend. It is totally different.
Now you said that you just went back. You just came back from
I just came
China.
back from China.
Tell us about the classical music scene in China.
Now it's different because the orchestras, it's a lot more than when I was there, and basically new orchestra coming one after another from different cities. And the time when I was in China, only the Central Philharmonic. That's only one big major orchestra. Rest of the smaller orchestra, they only, like an opera theater, only play Chinese opera, and not like today. We have many new orchestra and concert halls.
Wow. Now you mentioned that you could have had been in Germany to
Yes.
Freiburg, I believe.
To Freiburg, yes.
I guess if you had a chance to think about it, would you have? What would life have been if you had gone to Germany?
I don't know. I cannot compare because I'm here, but I'm very happy in Hawaii. I'm very happy in my life in US because the freedom, the musical training, and now I have my business set up in Hawaii, and I'm just very happy can help the community for their kids to achieve their musical dream.
I'm glad that you're here too. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do an interview with you.
Thank you.
Well, let's take a break right now. When we come back, I will have both Jonathan and Nicholas to talk about their different life as, well, I guess one as an executive director for the Hawaii Symphony and the other as a business owner or entrepreneur here in the US. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Yamashita, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And urban transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Willow Chang Leon, and I host a show called The Art of Life. We air live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. And what we do is basically we focus on individuals who create a unique sense of place for Hawaii. These are movers and shakers, artists, innovators. They are also traditionalists. They're all involved in the archival process, and they make this place a unique place, one that makes Hawaii a richer place to be. I hope you do join us, and certainly tell your friends about the show, whether they live here or they live abroad. It's a way to give back to our community. We're keeping it Pono.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Alice-Lee Hagen on Business Education Spotlight. I have two very distinguished guests with me today. Jonathan Parrish, the Executive Director of Hawaii Symphony, and Nicholas Dow, owner and entrepreneur of CK Violin. Before the break, I was talking to Nicholas about his musical career in China and the US, and of course, first of all, he was at the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing, China. All right, let's switch our focus now. Instead of talking about being musicians, I would like to ask you about being business persons here. Let's start with you, Jonathan. I know you were a horn player for 30 years, and there were quite a few write-ups about you and how you become the executive director. And of course, the title of my show, reading musical scores to balance sheet, came from one of the articles. How did you decide to take your passion of music off stage?
You know, it just sort of happened in a way by necessity. I mean, I think naturally I was sort of drawn to doing some of this stuff, but you know, when I came to Hawaii in 1998, a couple years later, I started playing for Chamber Music Hawaii in the Spring Wind Quintet. And Chamber Music Hawaii is a very small organization, just about entirely volunteer run, and there were many things that needed to be done, and so I tried to make myself useful and pitch in a little bit. I thought, well, I think I can figure out how to do that, or you know, maybe I can learn how to write a press release, or how to, you know, help the box office or something. So I just jumped in and started doing a few things, and a couple years later I was in charge of all of it, and for about 10 years I was the general manager of Chamber Music Hawaii at a time when we grew, well, our budget grew quintupled.
Wow.
During that time.
Because earlier on when we were doing when I was talking to you, you have all the business language. You were talking about diversifying the product line. So obviously you're picking up a lot of things very quickly then.
A little bit. I don't have all the latest lingo down yet, but yeah, I think it makes sense to me. I think you have a product, you have a market or an audience, and we're fortunate with the symphony. We have a very loyal audience, and they want to keep purchasing our product, I hope, as long as we put out a good one.
And as a customer, I am very satisfied with what I have seen. Turning to you, Nicholas, and by the way, congratulations on your shop, because it's the 20th anniversary,
20,
right?
yes.
It's been a while, so tell us, how did you switch from playing violin, practicing 7 to 8 hours a day, to becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I was a violinist, playing the Honolulu Symphony, and from 89 to 1999 for 10 years. And I never satisfied with with the violin sound. So I always in my life, I tried to make the violin sound as good, as beautiful, darker as, my dream tone. So I always try to fool around the violin, how I'm going to get the violin sound better. So my interest on the violin to make sound better. And another hand, I see the needs in state of Hawaii, when I try to get my violin service, and I have to go to the mainland, I have to go to Chicago or San Francisco, I say, and the kids' violin, the kids' cello, and no one really doing any service for the string instruments. And I can see the potential in here. I say, I'm gonna start a violin shop to help the local students and to help the local musicians. That's how triggered me to start a violin shop.
Okay. Well, you're both musicians and professionally trained, and now you're doing something else, of course still related to music. So how has your musical training helped you or not in becoming, in doing what you're doing today? Jonathan?
Well, I think in probably in many more ways than I could think of. I think, you know, since you started at an early age, I started, maybe I was about 9. I started on violin. For 4 years I played violin. Yes, I wasn't very good, so I had to switch to French horn.
Can I ask you how you decide to pick French horn?
My
from
brother
violin?
suggested it.
Oh.
My older brother was an oboist, and I wanted to be in the band, so I asked him what I should play, and he told me to play the French horn, so I did. You listened to your older brother, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I enjoyed playing violin. But I think that you start at such a young age that you learn some skills that you're not even aware of at that time. You learn that your mind gets trained in certain processes that just become part of your life, and then you're not aware that maybe not everybody connects things the same way. But I think the most important thing about having studied music and running an orchestra, and I think for Nicholas too, is just our passion for music. You know, we both love music. If we didn't love the music that was the result of running the orchestra or providing instruments and fixing instruments for people, that's the point. The point is the music that gets produced as a result of what we do.
And obviously you provide a full service shop, so you still work with a lot of the musicians in the symphony.
I do. I work almost everyone from the Hawaii Symphony string players. If they ever need a bow repair or violin tune-up, and I'm always 100% for them. I'm always in the concert hall, and also for the local kids, for the youth symphony, for the school orchestras, Roseville High School Orchestra. If the kids ever need any service, I'm always here for them.
And the symphony soloists too. When we have the touring soloists, you know, they're on the road for weeks at a time. They don't have the time to go to New York or to their favorite shop. And they're here, and Nick is always nearby, and they all know Nicholas when they come to town.
Yeah, Nick, maybe you can tell us some of the world-renowned musicians you've met, and of course I've seen pictures of them on your website. Want to tell us about them?
Yes, I have a famous violinist, Hilary Hahn, Sarah Chan, Pink Zuckerman, and principal first chair Boston Symphony Jules Asking. Actually, I saw him play in 1979 in Beijing, but I didn't know the gentleman. But now he came and visited to my shop a few years ago, and always become a friend. Every time he comes to visit Hawaii, he's our guest, and he comes to play our cello.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So how does it feel to interact them with these musicians, not necessarily as musicians, but you're more like a business person and entrepreneur. So is there a difference?
I'm more like a musician than a businessman because, like sometimes, a lot of times, kids, they just need a violin or the cello for a weekend, doing their audition, doing their competition, and they ask me, Nicholas, can I rent a cello for over the weekend just for my competition? I always just let them take the best of the pile from the cello, let them use for their competition during the weekend without charging them. So I'm more a musician. I want the kids to become successful and love the classical music and support our community orchestras.
That's why you've been around for 20 years, and I'm sure there will be a lot more 20 years to come, right?
Yes.
Now, then there are a lot of success stories, but personally, what do you see as your challenges as an administrator for the symphony?
Well, the challenge I think for the symphony is obviously we want to broaden our market in our programming, and we want to grow in a sustainable way, but we do want to grow. We have lots of room to grow, I think, lots of potential. But also geographically, we want to serve the entire state. We are the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. We want to visit the neighbor islands, and we have plans to do that. But obviously, it's more challenging than it is for orchestras on the mainland who can just get on a bus.
Right.
New Jersey Symphony goes all over the state, North Carolina Symphony. For us, it's going to be a little more challenging, but we're committed to doing it. We've done it in the past. So those are challenges, and I think the other is just convincing people that the orchestra here is a world-class orchestra. Because there are no other orchestras for 3,000 miles. There's no other symphony orchestra in any close proximity. It's easy to underestimate and think, oh, but as you can see, we attract world-class musicians.
Yes, we do.
Nick was with us for 10 years. He trained at the Beijing Conservatory and Eastman, and every one of our musicians is qualified like that.
We're really fortunate to have a symphony like ours. Let me push this question a little bit. Now, you talked about the challenges for the symphony, but what about for you personally as an administrator?
Well, obviously, I'm learning every day. You know, running chamber music Hawaii from my dining room table was one thing. It was a great experience, and the benefit I received from that is I had to do a little of everything. I had to do the marketing and the fundraising and the box office and artistic planning, all areas, a little. Now with symphony, I have people who specialize in those things. So for me, I try to keep my focus on the big picture, where we're headed, how the pieces come together, the planning. Obviously, keeping an eye on the budget all the time. And I'm learning new things. It's a different life working in the office all day than practicing and performing.
Let's hold that thought. I'll come back to that. But what about for you, Nicholas? You're a seasoned entrepreneur. You've run this business for 20 years.
Yes.
Do you find that there are still challenges, and what could they be?
Yeah, that's a lot of challenge. I try to provide the good instruments for the students, professionals, and my challenge is I try to talk to the teachers from public schools and to start the string orchestra. And my challenge to help them out, just to loan them instruments, to help them to start. The kids can touch the violin, can feel the cello, not just the band instruments or football game every day, but they have to have the string, the horn. Find them a good balanced orchestra. That's my challenge, to help them to do all that. And for me, and another way to challenge me is just the symphony orchestra members, when they need their instrument service, I have to get them on time because sometimes we're very short-handed. Yeah.
Well, now, obviously, you're running a business.
Yes.
Do you miss being musicians?
Yes, I want to play on the stage. I like the excitement. From the audience, and but now I'm 24 hours, just on the violin shop, repair and sales. And my wife, as a matter of fact, she still plays for the Hawaii Symphony. We were both full-time musicians, but now she plays part-time.
So she plays for you then, while you man the shop, right?
Yes, she still plays, and yeah.
What about for you then, Jonathan? Do you miss playing the French horn?
Well, I do, certainly. After 30 years, I knew from high school that I wanted to be a professional musician, play the French horn. I love the horn, and I love the music written for the horn, because I love all music. But having played in the orchestra since 1998, I really love this orchestra and this group of musicians too. So I sort of feel like, yes, I'm not getting to play out there on stage and play this great music, but it's maybe more important that I do what I'm doing so that the music can be played and can be heard. So I'm not trying to say it's some great personal sacrifice, but I do miss playing. But I feel that what I'm doing is important. It's important for the orchestra. It's important for the community.
Do you actually get time to play at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Little bit?
I still play with my chamber group from
good.
Chamber Music Hawaii. Yeah, they won't let me retire.
I'm glad they're not letting you retire.
So yeah, I have concerts in September and October that I have to play.
Oh, good.
But it's now I don't play every day, so it's harder to maintain your skills. You know, for musicians, you have to do it every day.
And you said something similar too, Nicholas, right?
Yes, and I miss to play the violin. I miss the group. I miss to play in the group, within the group, but I just don't have much time to practice. Yeah.
Well, my last question for both of you. If you could rewind back to, say, November 2013 or back to 1994 when you transitioned, what would you have done differently? One or two things that you may have wanted to do differently?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, certainly there are things that I would have that could have gone better, but really the whole season ended up pretty successfully, and I'm happy about that. I wish we were able to announce next season a little sooner, and that's what we're going to work on next year, because I think we're just a bit behind getting the season confirmed. We have 12 conductors and 12 soloists we have to negotiate with, and repertoire to choose, and a lot of details, a lot of emails, and it's just about done. But next year we're going to try to do it 2 or 3 months earlier.
That's great. Well, can always keep working on it. And Nicholas, what about for you?
For me, if I were done differently, I should, move the violin shop to a bigger area, a bigger space sooner. But now the violin shop is set up at the Waikiki Landmark. You've been to the shop, and we have more room, better facility for customers, for students, for professional musicians. They can play their violin, cello, try out their instruments after we tune up their instruments.
Yeah, it is a beautiful place. I remember I met you first time at your ward location. So what you've done with your shop right now is incredible.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much for being here with me, my two very, very distinguished guests and very committed musicians in the community. Really, we're very fortunate to have you. Good luck with the symphony. I'm looking forward to the new season. And Nicholas, I'm sure I will see you some other time when my son has issues with his violin.
Anytime.
And have a wonderful trip to Europe.
Thank you.
My two guests, Nicholas Dow, owner of CK Violin, and Jonathan Parrish, Executive Director of Hawaii Symphony. We've been talking about their transition from musician to businessman here. My name is Alice Lee Hagen, Business Education Spotlight with Think Tech Hawaii. We'll be back next week. Thank you.